It's that time again, earnings call day, and boy did we ever get a surprise. Strap in for the Q1 2020 earnings recap. This is Tesla Tidbits episode number 590 for April 29th, 2020. This show is sponsored by my supporter Richard. If you're in the market for a new Tesla, please consider using his referral code. Ask your salesperson to use code Richard174 or go direct to the web link ts.la/Richard174 and pick up a 1,000 mile supercharging credit for your new vehicle. Well, folks, we got quite the surprise today from Tesla's investor letter prior to the earnings call. As is tradition, I'll cover the investor letter first. Traditionally, throughout the entire automotive sector, Q1 is a tough quarter regardless of the type of economy we're in. Add on a global pandemic, and that really complicates things. And yet, somehow, someway, Tesla managed a small $16 million profit for Q1. It's the first time Tesla has reported a GAAP profit in the first quarter in the company's history. Also important during this time of uncertainty, Tesla added another $1.8 billion to its cash reserves, extending its war chest to a total of $8.1 billion. The capital raise that was completed couldn't have come at a more perfect time for the company, as the $2.3 billion infusion offset the negative free cash flow in the quarter that we'll cover in a moment. This gives the company significant runway in the event of further restrictions on plant operations. Tesla's worst quarter in history saw it only burn $717 million in cash. With these reserves, if Tesla repeated that worst quarter over and over, the company could still operate for more than 2 years. Into the negative portion of the earnings picture, we see that free cash flow went significantly negative, and it is no surprise. The company was $895 million in the red for the quarter, and the letter cites that $981 million worth of the company's outflow was due to inventory growth. In other words, they couldn't build or deliver any more cars, but they still have the parts or the cars on hand, and so take the hit for having them. And that was really the lone negative for Q1. We'll talk about Q2 a little bit later, though. But back to the positive, the company as a whole made a 4.7% operating margin in the quarter. Gross margin for vehicles being produced at Giga Shanghai is nearing vehicles produced at Fremont, and Model Y's first quarter of production is already gross margin positive. Tesla notes that it's the first time in its history the new product was profitable in its first quarter. Huge win there, and likely why we're already seeing delivery date requests from Tesla for owners with 7-seat configurations. In non-vehicle news, the solar roof product is beginning to take shape as Tesla reports producing 4 megawatts of capacity in a single week at Giga New York, which is considered enough to install on up to 1,000 homes. Considering we don't know if 1,000 had even been produced at all going into Q1, that's a significant advancement. Also on the energy side, Tesla installed its 100,000th Powerwall and says that more than 40% of its solar customers opt to install at least one Powerwall with their purchase. For all the good that we got for Q1, though, Q2 is not going to be fun at all. Alameda County today announced the extension of its shelter-in-place order through the end of May, and while some restrictions were eased, manufacturing was not one of them. In the outlook portion of the investor letter, the company rightly will not make any predictions as far as profit or cash flow goes now. Interestingly, though, this little tidbit surprised me. In talking about go-forward volume, the letter says, quote, "We have the capacity installed to exceed 500,000 vehicle deliveries this year, despite announced production interruptions," end quote. On reading this, my first reaction was, holy crap, exactly how much true capacity do Fremont and Shanghai possess together? Because if they can eat 2 months of production and still make 500,000 vehicles, that's astounding. Now, it's highly likely that this investor letter was created before this announcement, so take that into consideration with that statement. As far as go forward on products, the company still expects to be producing Model Y from both Giga Shanghai and Giga Berlin in 2021. The Semi, however, has been delayed into 2021 for first deliveries. While that's disappointing, and is probably the longest delayed Tesla hardware in history, they can't afford to get that one wrong. As famous game designer Shigeru Miyamoto once said, quote, "A delayed game is eventually good. A bad game is bad forever," end quote. I think the same applies here. The Semi will be great with time, but releasing it early could hurt not only Tesla's prospects in the space, but the EV movement among large trucks in general, neither of which is a good thing. Okay, that wraps the coverage of the investor letter. Let's get to the good stuff now, the audio from the conference call. Elon opens the call talking about the advancements of Model Y manufacturing over Model 3, and updates folks on the recent full self-driving advancements. As I laid out in a previous episode, the confirmation of proceeding through an intersection is training the neural net, making everyone's vehicle better.
Q1 ended up being a strong quarter despite many challenges in the final few weeks. This is the first time we've achieved positive GAAP net income in a seasonally weak first quarter. Even with all the challenges, we achieved a 20% automotive gross margin, excluding regulatory credits, while ramping 2 major products. What we've learned from this is that we've obviously learned a lot here. After the Model 3 ramp from 3 years ago, our new products get ramped faster and become profitable sooner. In Q1, we produced more Model Ys in the first quarter than Model 3s in Fremont in the first 2 quarters. Thus far, the Model Y ramp has been even faster than the Giga Shanghai ramp in Q1. Most surprisingly, in other words, we are ahead of the schedule that we were ahead of already. Most surprisingly, Model Y was profitable already in its first quarter of production, something we haven't achieved with any product in the past. Regarding Autopilot, we released a new software update for traffic lights and stop signs to early access users in March and to all U.S. customers with full self-driving package just last week. Our cars will now automatically stop at each stop sign or traffic light until the driver gets a confirmation to proceed. I should say that the car is actually capable of much more than this, but we are only exposing functionality that we feel quite good about and where we feel that it is probably a safety improvement. We are collecting data from over 1 million intersections every month at this point. This number will grow exponentially as more people get the update and as more people start driving again. Soon we will be collecting data from over 1 billion intersections per month. All of those confirmations are training on neural net. Essentially, the driver, when driving and taking action, is effectively labeling reality as they drive, and making the neural net better and better. I think that this is an advantage that no one else has. We're quite literally orders of magnitude more than everyone else combined. I think this is difficult to fully appreciate. It's the reason that it's very difficult to have a search engine that competes with Google, because everyone is training Google all the time with their searches. So when you search on something and you click on a link, you're training Google every time you do that. It's just very difficult for any new search engine to compete on that basis. All those confirmations are training on neural net, and soon cars will be able to drive through an intersection without a confirmation, as well as to make turns, and we really feel I feel extremely confident that it will be possible to do a drive from your home to your office most of the time with no interventions by the end of the year. So this is we can almost do this already with the leading edge alpha builds that I'm driving in the car. So let's see, on other technology fronts, we increased the range of Model S and X yet again, this time to 391 miles for Model S and 351 miles for Model X. It should be said that actually the real Model S range is 400 miles. But when we did the last EPA test, unfortunately EPA left the car door open and the keys in the car. So the car, and they did this overnight, and so the car actually went into waiting for driver mode and lost 2% of its range, and as a result it had a 391 test. As soon as the EPA reopens for testing, we will redo the test, and we're extremely confident that we will achieve a 400-mile or greater range with the Model S. But to be clear, the Model S that for the past 2 months, the true range of the Model S for the past two months has been 400 miles. And of course, we're not stopping there. We'll always continue pushing for improved range over time and improving handling, acceleration, and all the little details that make a Tesla special. For Model Y, we introduced the revolutionary 2-piece rear underbody casting that we're going to be making a single-piece casting later this year, meaning that essentially the rear third of the body is cast as a single piece, which is no casting of this size of complexity has ever been done before. In fact, there isn't even anything that is on par with the two-piece casting for the Model Y. So we're really pushing the envelope on vehicle structural engineering and manufacturing. I'm very excited about this approach, as it allows us to reduce the weight, the cost, and improve NVH. It's better in every way, essentially. For Model Y, we also introduced a revolutionary new heat pump, which allows the car to have a higher range. So the Model Y has remarkable range, on par with, in fact, slightly better than, I guess, the Model 3. And despite being a bigger car that weighs more. And the heat pump is a key contributor to that. It is especially excellent at low temperature driving. So, and the feedback we're getting from customers who have received the Model Y thus far has been universally positive. We're confident this product will be our best-selling product ever. So, in conclusion, and just to looking for, I guess this is a forward-looking statement. We are absolutely continuing our Model Y capacity expansion at full speed at both Giga Berlin and Giga Shanghai, and here in Fremont when they will let us continue. Localized production in China and in Europe will bring the cost down, making our parts even more competitive over time. While many other companies are cutting back on investment, we are doing the opposite. We are absolutely pedal to the metal on new products and expanding the company. And we're really looking forward to being in sometime next year a truly global manufacturer with major factories in North America, China, and Europe, and a capacity of well over 1 million units a year. So there's a tremendous amount to look forward to, and we can't wait to tell you what's going to happen. Thank you.
It's interesting that Elon notes that the car is indeed actually capable of more, but they've only released what they feel comfortable with. I think it's a clear shot at the naysayers out there saying that they're not concerned with safety. As Elon has said before, and says in this call as well, there's no substitute for real-world experience, and they're getting that experience in the safest way possible. The last pretty awesome full self-driving bit was Elon feeling good about a home-to-office drive with little to no intervention before year's end. If alpha builds are near capable of this already, this bodes well for that feature being ready before the year is out. Pretty awesome as well that the true range of Model S per Elon is now 400 miles, on the same 100 kilowatt-hour pack that has been in the car for years. They've hit the latest Holy Grail benchmark, now let's see how quickly the detractors move the goalposts out further. Despite all that is uncertain right now, it was great to hear Elon be positive in general about the future of the company. After all, it does certainly look bright, assuming we can just get past all the current pandemic restrictions and get back to some semblance of normal again. But we'll get to that in just a little bit. In the meantime, let's hear from Elon about a long-rumored capability, and that is the monthly subscription for full self-driving.
I think we will offer full self-driving as a subscription service, but it will be probably towards the end of this year. I should say it will still make sense as to buy FSD as an option. As in our view, buying FSD is an investment in the future, and we are confident that it is an investment that will pay off to the consumer and to the benefit of the consumer. And in my opinion, buying the FSD option is something people will not regret doing.
So if you decide to forego full self-driving, but want a little taste of it, in the future, you can kick it on for a month and see what you think. Seems like this would be a perfect thing to do while going on a road trip vacation, and I bet Tesla gets more than a few one-month subscriptions for just that reason. Next was the question of how this pandemic has actually improved Tesla. Elon spends a couple of minutes taking us through the advent of touchless delivery.
Well, it has caused us to look closely at our cost structure and to be more efficient as a company. One always has to do that in a crisis, and to think about our core beliefs and what do we want to do, we came to the conclusion that that the right move is actually to continue to expand rapidly, continue to invest in the future in new technologies, even though it is risky. And we've talked to some of our key investors, and they support that approach as well. So, I think that there's clearly an uncertain, future ahead. It's a bit of a bumpy road, but I think the long-term prospects are extremely good. Anything you guys want to add?
Yeah, I agree with that, Elon. The prioritization on the key projects will enable us to execute more efficiently and faster on them, which I think is great. The other one that I would add is it's always been our vision at Tesla to improve the customer experience and make that as digital as possible.
Yeah, touchless delivery.
So touchless delivery, mobile service, touchless sales has been something that we've been very focused on and made a lot of progress on.
Yeah, but the Tesla is the only car that you can literally order it in less than 5 minutes on your phone. You can order a car and have it delivered to your doorstep with all the paperwork and everything done. That's it, effortless.
And many customers do that.
And they're doing it, yes. In fact, a big part of it is just trying to communicate to people that this is something you can do, because normally buying a car is quite a pain. For most people, they would rather go to the dentist than buy a new car. Actually, my dentist is great, but it's really like quite an arduous thing. When the typical retail experience for buying a new car is more painful to people than having a root canal, then you have to say, whoa. And for Tesla, it is completely as easy as ordering something from the Apple App Store or ordering something on Amazon and just up to the car.
Touchless delivery became a thing as a result of COVID-19, but that was a goal before the pandemic. They just finally executed it. It's still not quite what has been previously desired, where the customer just completes the remainder of all paperwork on the car's center screen, but it's a great stopgap to facilitate the continued delivery of vehicles to owners during the pandemic. The next question tries to get Elon to divulge something about what we can expect from Battery Day, but he wouldn't give up any of the goods.
Yeah, actually, we don't want to preempt Battery Day. We want to leave the exciting news for that day, but there will be a lot of exciting news to tell, and I think it'll be one of the most exciting days in Tesla's history, and we're just trying to figure out the right timing for that. We think probably the right timing will be probably the third week of May. Not giving a firm date, but we think that probably that's the right timing. And depending upon what we're allowed to do, it'll either be in California or Texas.
Well, maybe he did give up some goods. Texas is a possible location for the Battery Day announcement? Well, that sounds like the next Gigafactory location may already be decided then, doesn't it? But despite that, in the next question about the announcement of said Gigafactory, Elon played it cool, as though it's not necessarily decided yet.
I think we will announce the next Giga possibly as soon as a month. We may announce this as soon as next month. This is not a prediction, it's just saying that could happen. It will certainly be within 3 months and possibly 1 month. And that would be in the U.S.
So now we come to the portion of the call that got the most traction in the media. Zach Kirkhorn was actually answering a question about liquidity, but Elon added further to it, intimating his concern over the company's ability to restart the Fremont factory.
Yeah. I should say we are a bit worried about not being able to resume production in the Bay Area, and that should be identified as a serious risk. We only have 2 car factories right now, one in Shanghai and one in the Bay Area. And the Bay Area produces the vast majority of our cars, all of S and X, and most of the 3 and all of the Y. So the extension of the shelter-in-place, or frankly I would call it forcibly imprisoning people in their homes against all their constitutional rights, that's my opinion, and breaking people's freedoms in ways that are horrible and wrong, and not why people came to America or built this country. What the excuse me. People, the outrage, it's an outrage. But it will cause great harm, not just to Tesla, but to many companies. And while Tesla will weather the storm, there are many small companies that will not. And all people's, everything people have worked for their whole life is being destroyed in real time. And we're going to have many suppliers, and are having many suppliers that are having super hard times, especially the small ones. And it's causing a lot of strife to a lot of people.
So, yeah, clearly, Elon a bit frustrated with this situation, as, well, many are. The same questioner then follows up asking Elon for his message to lawmakers regarding the situation.
I think it's high time we invested in infrastructure in this country. We have a lot of crumbling highways and bridges, and frankly, when I visit China, I see their infrastructure as being much better than ours. It's great. Europe has better infrastructure. It's really quite sad. The U.S. infrastructure, especially sort of roads and highways, is where it is today, and our airports, in a lot of cases, are an embarrassment. And it's not just a question of money; it's a question of will. Sometimes we spend a lot of money on these things, but what are we getting for it? We really need to be thinking about what is the transportation of the future, not the transportation of the past. If this was 1920, do you want to be investing in steam engines or internal combustion engines? Obviously, not steam engines. So, this is a time to think about the future, and also to ask, is it right to infringe upon people's rights, as what is happening right now? I think the people are going to be very angry about this, and are very angry. It's like if somebody wants to stay in their house, that's great. They should be allowed to stay in their house, and they should not be compelled to leave. But to say that they cannot leave their house, and they will be arrested if they do, this is fascist. This is not democratic. This is not freedom. Give people back their freedom.
Now, this thing blew up on social media, but I have to say, to me at least, it wasn't anything like it was made out to be. To read Twitter, you'd think that he went on this mega tirade. Clearly, these folks didn't hear the earnings call where he tore apart the institutional analysts that were asking questions that he felt were dumb. And that, folks, is a lesson in today's media. If you hear something secondhand, best to go to the source to see the reality of the situation before forming an opinion. That will do it for today's show. As I always say on these shows, I hope you enjoyed the extra audio from the calls, especially tonight, because I really botched the production of the show and caused myself pretty much double the normal work that it should have. Won't let that one happen again. Lesson learned. Thanks to all my patrons supporting the show at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. And as always, a special shout out to all the super patrons supporting the show at the $10 plus level. They are Ryan Scarborough, Lee Sweet, William Henry Crew III, Dorian Steve Guberman, Ralph and Cheryl Waterhouse, Megawatt Photovoltaic Development, Todd Sullivan, Mitch Long, Zortec LED Canada, Morven Ogg, Raymond and Deborah Malkowitz, T Sportline, Vicky Kirk, Ricky Johnston, Nathan Garza, Ed Patterman, Sunil Joseph, and Joy Rodriguez. If you have feedback for me, the best way to be heard is to tweet at Tesla Tidbits and use the hashtag AskTeslaTidbits if you'd like your question to be considered for the show. Until next time, keep it charged and hit the road.